I, as a dad, didn't want to work all the time. I didn't want the stress and pressure of having to work 80 hours a week. I mean, before kids, I would just work all the time because I loved what I did. And I overheard my son, who I think was 8 at the time, say to my wife, "Dad works all the time." And it was heartbreaking.
Jerry, wow, what a journey. I feel like I've been on with you. It was a little over a year ago that on the Atomicon, I think it was the networking week, you ran a masterclass about YouTube and podcasting. And I'd been procrastinating for a long time, which I'm very good at.
How long?
About probably a couple of years, to be fair.
A couple of years.
And ironically, you say that. Back in 2016, 2017, I was creating vlogs for my other business and I was putting them on YouTube and I was absolutely loving it. And then I just stopped for some reason. And I actually thought the other day, I wonder what it would be like if I'd have carried on, because I would have like 10 years, almost 10 years worth of content that I'd actually been filming on a constant basis. So yeah, creating a podcast has been something that I kind of had been thinking about for a long time. Originally in my previous business, wanting to talk to like fellow photographers and media people in media production. And then when I sort of migrated over to this business, I was like, yeah, this would be a great opportunity. And I did the whole, And the problem for me is my background is media, photography and video. So I am a know-it-all. And I say the phrase quite often, magic isn't found in perfection. But my problem is I am always looking to strive for perfection, because it's that whole thing, isn't it? When you do this for other people as a creative, you want to kind of create something perfect, I suppose, for yourself. So you really opened my eyes on that masterclass, and it was really great. I literally came off that masterclass with you, which again was part of the Atomicon networking week, and I just went downstairs and said to my wife, "I'm doing it. I'm setting up the podcast." And she was like, "Cool. How do you do it then?" I went, "Well, I've got everything I need. I've got all the recording equipment.
Yeah.
I've got a webcam. I'll just do it on Zoom." And I did it on Zoom for a few months and then moved over to Riverside. So yeah, firstly, Jerry, I want to say thank you for the kick up the butt.
Well, congratulations. I know you are over 50 episodes now, and they say 90% of people don't make it past 3 and 90% of those don't make it past 20. So literally getting to 21 episodes is a unique milestone for people. And it's there's a lot of emotion, right? In the beginning, you're like, I have to figure all these things out. And then you get excited and you put out the first few episodes and you're not going to go viral right away. And then you have to find the motivation to keep going. So congrats. It's an achievement. It's awesome.
I don't know if it is actually probably is an actual thing. There's an episode of Friends where they go, I think they send Chandler off to go and watch the vagina monologues. And she opens off with, "Why don't you like me?" And I definitely feel like being in social media, like putting podcasts and episodes like that out, you in those early stages, you press go and then you go, well,
yes,
no one's there. No one's there.
It's a vulnerability hangover because you do all this prep and then you put it out there. But that's one of the reasons I encourage people to not just on podcasting or YouTube, but anything, just start. I delayed my YouTube channel for 3 months, even though all the videos were ready to go, because I was trying to achieve some level of perfection, as you described. I consider myself a recovering perfectionist now. And
like that.
Nobody saw the first videos at all. It was like, oh, cool. I'm so glad I waited 3 months to put these videos out that almost nobody sees. So do the thing.
Amazing. So Jerry, tell me a little bit about, for the listeners, a little bit about what you do and kind of who you are, because obviously I met you on this masterclass journey, and then obviously you are, I'll let you explain, but you're obviously in the States, and then we actually got to meet in Newcastle at Atomicon as well. So it's like, it just proves again how small this massive big wide world is, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I was the shy, introverted kid who ended up as a radio presenter or radio personality because, it was this opportunity to do something cool for a job and hide in a room and not be on camera, And so that's kind of was the beginning of all of this. And then eventually, radio became a difficult business. And I kind of translated what I had into marketing, and I started on YouTube. And it was sort of just going to be a hobby, like, oh, let's see what this YouTube thing is all about. And my channel took off. I didn't even have a business at the time. Like, if people were like, oh, do you want to have your own business? I was like, no. Like, entrepreneurs are crazy. I'm not going to be one of those people. That sounds stressful, you know? And I had a stranger contact me on LinkedIn. He goes, "Hey, I love your videos. Your channel's blowing up. Your business must be doing really well." And I was like, "I don't have a business." And he was shocked and appalled. And he's like, "Would you get on a call with me? I know you don't know me, but," and I was like, "Yeah, sure, I guess." And he introduced me to online business and, memberships and courses and all of that. So, but ultimately it comes down to this, I, as a dad, didn't want to work all the time. I
Hmm.
didn't want the stress and pressure of having to work 80 hours a week. I mean, before kids, I would just work all the time because I loved what I did. But during the pandemic, I had this moment, in 2020, everybody's at home. And I overheard my son, who I think was 8 at the time, say to my wife, "Dad works all the time." And it was heartbreaking because I worked so much less than I'd ever worked in my life. Like, once the kids were born, I was like, I'm going to be a 40-hour a week or less person. And at that point, I had my own business and I was working maybe 25 to 30 hours a week. But because I only worked while he was in school before that, he'd never seen me work. So
Yeah.
to him, here I was getting up every day, working for 5 to 6 hours. And that was, "Dad works all the time." And that broke my heart. And so that sent me down the path where I am now. My company's called Done by Lunch. And the idea is, let's design our businesses in a way that you can work less and scale without having to hire a team or anything like that. And so that's kind of where we are now.
I love that. I love that. It's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because it's amazing what our children pick up on. I have a rule that, and my biggest accountability partner on this is my daughter, because
Mm,
I made the solemn oath to her that I would not be working after 4 p.m. when she comes home. Now,
perfect.
you know what happens at 4 when she walks through the door and my laptop's still open, don't you? So for me, it is that kind of, it's so important to be present with our kids and our, and our ultimately partners and everything. But it is so funny what the perception is of someone seeing you just open the laptop. And you know I spent years, and I mean years, and I say this all the time. I was doing everything I was doing for my loved ones, and they were
Mhm.
the ones that were getting further and further away from me in that process because I was in that moment. For you then, when you sort of went over to what you do now, was how different is that from what you did like as a career before? Is that quite different or?
Well, the hardest part was you have to be accountable for yourself, right? I mean, that's the part that I didn't know about entrepreneurship really. Like, I was a really good employee. I am a recovering people pleaser as well, along with recovering perfectionist, and did really well with external deadlines. I wanted to please my clients. When I worked at an agency, when I worked in radio, I wanted to please the listeners. I wanted to please management, all of those things. And so it was really easy. And then when I got into being an entrepreneur, it was like, oh, nobody's checking up on me. And so it took me a couple of years to figure that part out because other than limiting how much I worked, I would only be, like productive when I had a deadline. So I had to sort of learn how to hack myself to where it was like, if somebody asked me for something, I would say, "I will have this for you by tomorrow morning," so that I
Yeah,
would get it done that day. And
absolutely.
in entrepreneurship too, I think we have to be very clear on our goals because otherwise, what I found that I did actually for many years is if there was enough money in the bank, I would just kind of do the things that sounded fun. And then there wasn't enough money in the bank. And I'd be like, "Oh man, now I gotta launch." And so it took me a while to kind of get out of that. And so now I look at everything in, I use the phrase high leverage a lot. I consider YouTube, for example, a high leverage asset. Podcasts are a high leverage asset if you have a way to grow them, because over time, your episodes, your videos, they keep bringing in new people again, as long as it's growing. And so it's one of those things that you can do the work once or set it up once and then it serves you for years and years and years. So now when I start my day, I don't look at a to-do list. I look at my high leverage task list. And yes, there's stuff like, "Oh, I got to reply to this email." But other than that, I'm literally looking at like three big picture things and I'm always trying to work on those, the things that will benefit me long into the future after I've finished them. And so it's just been a mindset shift because in the beginning it was like, what do I need to do today? And if there was nothing,
Mm,
then I would be like, okay, let me go play with this now. So
yeah.
it's
I
been
can't
very
remember who
helpful.
I can't remember who it was that first told me about it, but a friend of mine actually talked about it being a to-do list rather than a to-do list. So it's like as you do
Never
it,
heard that.
each thing you do is like ta-da! And
I like that.
I thought that was quite fun in the sense of it kind of takes away that kind of almost there's that gratification in there. It's like it's been done. When you when you say about serial people pleaser, is there a boundary that you kind of have now that you didn't really have then?
Well, one of the things I did when I started with the business was I took everything. My last full time job was working at an agency as the creative director and chief marketing officer. And I took everything that I hated about the agency and I built my business in the opposite way. So, one of the things when I started making offers is I don't want anyone giving me money at a level that they get to text me at night or even necessarily have my phone number, right? We have so many ways we can communicate now.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I launched a low ticket membership and then, courses that were 500 to $1,000. I didn't want $1,000 a month client at the agency. I mean, we had one client, $1,000 a month client, but because of that, we were expected to drop everything anytime if something came up.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I was primarily managing social media and content strategy. And I used to tell my clients, I'm like, there's no such thing as a social media emergency. Let's stop pretending like there are social media
Absolutely, yeah.
emergencies. Yeah. So that was the boundaries now start by relieving myself of that pressure of, oh, yeah, I'm available all the time. And then beyond that, I try and really keep my workday compact. The done by lunch idea started because I was hired to host this show for another company, Social Media Examiner, and it was live streamed on Fridays at noon my time, and then it would become a podcast. And so I had to sort of build around that. But when I first got that, it's been, 5 years ago now, I said to my wife, Candy, I was like, hey, why don't we go on a lunch date every Friday after the show? And she said, yeah, okay, cool. A little extra money.
Cool.
Let's go out to eat. Yeah, the kids are in school, fits perfectly. And pretty quickly, it was like, I don't really want to work anymore today after the lunch date. So then it would become, all right, well, let me get everything that I need to get done before Monday done in the morning. And
Yeah.
so that became the first boundary that I had. And then from there, it's kind of trickled into other days. And so that's how I've done it now. But the first part is, I think, for anyone who's trying to work less is like your own mindset of what's expected because I think naturally, especially if you are a recovering people pleaser, we all assume people like will demand things that they're not even thinking. They're not thinking you better reply to my text at 8:30 at night. And if they are, find new clients.
I actually can so relate to this because with particularly with the media business years ago, I used to say to people, "When do you need that done?" And they'd say, "Blah blah blah," and I go, "Great." They would give me a timeline they wanted it done by, but I would always go 2 days earlier. So I would always put the pressure on. But I would say to them, "I'm aiming for that date, but my plan is it will be done by." And
You tell them.
that used to be really good, but then sometimes used to be the whole, oh my god, it's 11:30 and I said I would probably get it done by Monday morning. They said they want it by Wednesday. I'll stay up and get it done. And that used to burn me out the other way because I
Yeah.
wanted to overpromise all the time, and it was quite exhausting, to be fair.
Yeah, it's hard to get things done without a deadline for anybody. I talk to my clients a lot about Parkinson's law, I think it is, where the
Yeah,
amount of work will expand to fill the time that you give it. And it's so easy to do that. And I think AI has made it worse
yeah, yeah,
because you can get into this planning mode with AI for hours and days. And ultimately, everything you ended up with, like let's say you just, you chatted with Claude or ChatGPT for 2 hours a day for 5 days. At the end of the week, that 10 hours, you probably could have come up with the same result or something 95% as good in, an hour or two.
yeah. I love that. I'm gonna touch on that because I think there's something that I think is actually absolutely incredible with AI, and I'd love to know your take on it. With that whole done by lunch theory, is there anything that you use in particular to kind of help you get done by lunch? that helps you within that? Is there any particular, like, one little thing that you think, well, actually, this is really simple, but
The done by lunch thing started actually before AI, or certainly before AI as we, have it now. I think what was ChatGPT was like November 2022, and it was sometime during 2023. And I actually, as a as someone who worried that AI is going to replace what I help people with, I kind of avoided it for a while. I didn't quite get it until I was at a conference and I went, okay, now I get it. I'm all in. But the biggest thing that I think AI is good for a lot of people that are trying to be more productive, is moving forward on ideas when you're not at your desk. So, for example, I go for a hike almost every morning. I live in Arizona, in the United States, where it's hot in the summertime. So, in the summertime, I go at 5 a.m. And I will, like this morning, I had a conversation with Claude about a new idea that I had. And by the time I'd finished the hike 45 minutes later, Claude had not only helped me talk through the idea, it had written the emails with me, it had designed the form for this thing because it's going to require an application. And when I got back, I told Claude, hey, here's my form builder, build the form. So
Mhm,
that project probably would have gotten pushed back another 5 days. So if
mhm,
anyone is not talking to their AI advice, their AI device, I mean, I did it with ChatGPT for a long time as well.
mhm.
Like, it's incredible to do that. And basically they all have this built-in thing where it'll read back what it
Yeah,
gives you. So on the
yeah.
hike, I talk to it, I wait for the response, then I hit play, and then I listen to it, and then we keep going from
I did exactly the same thing on the beach with the dogs,
there. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
especially in the winter, because the winter walks are hard. So it will be. It's also where you like anything, any ideas that come up, and some of them you can get it to file them away where you need them and so forth. I've got a question for you. Do you think it's really strange? This is going to be one of my conspiracy theories now. That Ask Jeeves recently closed down after all these years, and in the same kind of couple of weeks, everyone went Claude crazy. Do you think that Ask Jeeves has come back reincarnated as Claude? I think that's what's happened. I think Ask Jeeves is still alive because I used to love going on Ask Jeeves. Remember, it was years, but it was Ask Jeeves. Did you have Ask Jeeves in the States? I
Yeah.
hope you did.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I remember using it once or twice. I never really went there. Like, Google was always my search engine. But
yeah, yeah.
so did Ask Jeeves shut down right before Claude launched? Is that how the
So
timeline works?
no, no. So it was a few weeks ago. They announced that Ask Jeeves was shut down, and it was almost in
Got it.
that same kind of couple of weeks where everyone went, "Oh no, it's not ChatGPT anymore. It's Claude." And I thought, I wonder. There's got to be everyone was probably using Ask Jeeves, and they've moved to Claude because he sounds like a true English gentleman, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, it depends. You can change the voice. Right
Yeah.
now, mine is set to an English female who talks way too slow, so I need to I need to change that. But it's interesting. The migration to Claude over the last couple of months, I think, was driven by a few things. I mean, ChatGPT did some really dumb stuff publicly. They ran a Super Bowl ad, and I think just a lot of it. I mean, politics got involved, all these different things, and I was one of those people that put off Claude. People are like, "Oh, it's better," and I'm like, "Okay, whatever." As somebody who teaches what I learn, I always like to use what would you say, the Kleenex
Yeah.
brand of whatever it is, right? Like, what's
Yeah.
the brand that everybody knows? Because it's so much easier to just say, yeah, this is the main thing. Like in my YouTube program, we use ChatGPT for different things, than to be like, all right, go sign up for this thing that you've never heard of and pay for it. So, but yeah, that's interesting. So Jeeves is Claude. There's definitely a
So
lot of
that's my
similarities there.
theory. That's my conspiracy theory. Think there's a lot of conspiracy theories in the world, and I think that is a healthy one.
Yes, I'm not gonna tell you you're wrong because there's nothing dangerous about it. But yeah, you could
Amazing,
probably ask
amazing.
Claude to if you could call him or her Jeeves, and they'd probably be okay with it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, Jerry, I've got a couple of questions I'm really buzzing to ask you. One is, where does your love for Superman come from, and what is your kryptonite?
Oh, okay. So the superhero thing kind of started with my kids. I'd always liked superhero movies. I was never a comic book person. I'm still not. But those were the first movies that both of my boys, who are almost 4 years apart, and I could all like watch together. We all enjoyed them, and my wife. And so it kind of started from there. And then the t-shirts actually came out when short form video became a big thing. People would talk about, I can't be on short form video. I'm not a 19-year-old in a bikini or whatever it might be. And so I started telling people, I'm like, look, I am a, 40 something dad who wears superhero t-shirts, and is just a big old dork. If I can make short form videos, you can. So that was when
Yeah,
it
yeah,
sort of became a thing. So, but I do love Superman because of his ridiculous optimism. I'm the same way. I think optimism is a superpower, and the ability that everybody can be helped, and when we help each other, I have a sign on my wall in the office says we all do better when we all do better. So
yeah.
that's where the love of Superman is. I do just love, superhero origin stories. My kryptonite, gosh, I have so many weaknesses. You're putting me on the spot here. It's funny because, back in the day when I was interviewing for jobs, they're like, what's your biggest weakness? And I would be like, loving my job too much. Give one of those, total crap
Do you know
answers.
what? You've just seen as you said that. Do you know what mine used to be on my job interviews? I used to swear by this. What's your weakness, Andy? I'd say I'm terrible at saying no. I'll give anything a go.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, so it was like I'm terrible at saying no. I'm willing to try everything and give everything a yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what's your oh god, there's got to be one. I'm intrigued now, Jerry.
Yeah. My biggest kryptonite is probably like, the biggest weakness in my business is absolutely tracking numbers. I've gotten better at it, but I tend to run my business. The phrase I've started using is, I run my business on vibes. It's kind of like, yeah, it feels good. I see sales coming in. I'm sure everything is fine. And that has cost me dearly a few times where I have gone to shut things down that I didn't think were working because I didn't properly track them. Or left things running that weren't working because I didn't properly track them. So I'm still working on the mindset part. I don't know if it's an aversion of fear of looking at the numbers or what. I like data, but I don't like, I like what we can do with data, but I don't like looking at data.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, it's when it's something that's you're like, it doesn't if it doesn't really sort of like excite you, like those kind of numbers. Like I love looking at some of the YouTube analytics sometimes and being like, oh cool, they lost them. I lost them there. I'm like, oh, that's exciting because then you can work on like improving those things. But when you're like certain things, you're like, my I've had one for years which was very similar, but it's in the sense of I have no idea what's in my bank account because my wife has
Mm,
pretty much controlled our bank account. Not because she's controlling, it's because she's just done all the accounts. So she's like, I'm like, oh, can we buy this? She's like, yes. Can we buy that? She says no. So it's been
okay.
that kind of thing for me that I like from the account side, I've almost not really known. And also, I think
Yeah.
that's why there's never been the pressure because I know we're safe, we know we're comfortable. So it's like, oh, cool.
I think, yeah, as long as somebody's looking at the bank account,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
earlier, Randy, we talked about vulnerability, putting something out there. And I think there's something with that. Like I remember when I first signed up for a, email marketing software, and by default, I would get an email every time somebody unsubscribed from the list. And I'm
Hmm.
like, here's somebody else that doesn't like you. Here's somebody else that doesn't like you. Like that's what it felt like, as a new entrepreneur. And I remember the first time on YouTube, by default, you just see new subscribers. And I
Hmm.
remember going in and looking and seeing how many people were unsubscribing. And I'm like, well, that's a number I don't ever need to look at
Yeah.
again. So there's
I
probably
actually
some emotional trauma.
I flip that one. My unsubscribe when I get an unsubscribe in my email, it says, "Hey Andy, such and such is unsubscribed." That's don't worry, it's obviously not their time to shine. So I get that as my own notification to myself. So I'm like, yeah, cool, that's fine. It's obviously
But you
not
could
their
update it for yourself. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I do that within Go High Level. So I get that automation and then again, it's like the same thing when they unsubscribe, they go into it and unsubscribe, and then I can also see where they came from as well, which is always really cool because I think that's another thing. You're like, well, hang on a minute, everyone's unsubscribed because from that area, so you can sort of, again, that's where sometimes data is exciting, isn't it? It's sort of like, oh, okay, I can see where I can kind of grow on that level.
Yeah. And unsubscribes don't bother me at all. It's like, okay, not the right fit right now, but I don't need to, be reminded every time it happens. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. So Jerry, what does work life harmony mean to you? I talk about balance being bullshit to people all the time, and I'm dead set against balance. So what does work life harmony mean to you?
I think for me, work life harmony is making sure I'm prioritizing my wife and kids, so that I'm almost always available to them. Like I can't, always be available to them. Like, I mean, well, I don't know if one of my kids walked in right now and needed something, I would say, sorry, Andy, I got to go, take care
Yeah,
of
yeah,
this.
yeah,
He's hurt. But
yeah.
in general, I want to be available to them as
That
much
actually
as
happened on my
possible.
first episode. The lady I was interviewing, her son
Did
needed
it?
her, so he
Yeah.
came in.
Yeah. And so I think that's part of it, but for me, work-life harmony is getting to do something I love for as many hours a day as possible. So that means that in my business, I'm primarily doing things that I really love. So I design the business in that way. Outside the business, in my house, it's even setting things up in a way that it's enjoyable. Even when I'm folding laundry, there's a TV show that I watch when I'm folding laundry, Saturday Night Live. That they launched Saturday Night Live UK this year,
Yeah.
and it's just short sketches. So even if I only watch two, I do that while I'm folding laundry. So to me, that's the ultimate, is to where your day is full of things that you really, really enjoy.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think exactly what you've just said there. I love that element of doing something that maybe you don't enjoy, but then just spicing it up with a little bit of sprinkle of like excitement on top, which is that Saturday Night Live for you. That's amazing.
Yeah, when I do dishes, I watch YouTube. Like I'm always coming across YouTube videos and I save them to my watch later playlist. And when it's time for me to do dishes, I put in my AirPods. Nobody in the house is mad that I'm taking care of the dishes, right? So I just,
No,
put my
exactly.
iPad up on the windowsill and just, watch videos while I wash dishes, and it makes it enjoyable. I see
Yeah.
it now as the time I can catch up on all the YouTube videos I want to watch.
And it's the worst thing when you run out of dishes and you want to watch the rest of the show, right?
It's all right. It'll be there later.
Amazing, amazing. So, Jerry, tell me a little bit more about how people could sort of like find out about what you do and kind of how you work and stuff. Because I still love this done by lunch phrase. Even just that sounds, it sounds exciting, and it sounds like something you're like, oh yeah, I'd love to be done by lunch.
Yeah, well, when I launched it originally a few years back, what I found was nobody is willing to knock off at lunchtime if they're worried about leads and having enough sales in the next month, right? It's really hard for, like you said, you don't want to work after your daughter's home, but it'd be really hard to just say, all right, lunch is done. I'm just not going to work anymore. Hope we make enough to pay for the house next month, And so what I realized is in my own business, because I have a growing YouTube channel, I haven't had to worry about leads for years. And I've taken it through several pivots of my business. It's always, I work with business owners. And so now my focus with Done by Lunch is helping people grow a lead generating YouTube channel in 90 minutes a week. The other thing with YouTube, just like with your podcast, as we discussed, next month, next year, right? We'll just keep putting it off. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
now using AI and focusing on just the most important things, I teach people how to grow a channel in 90 minutes a week. So if people want to learn more about that, you can go to yt90roadmap.com. YT90 is YouTube in 90 minutes, and it'll give you a little like assessment you can take and find out, will YouTube work for me, or is it going to be a total time suck?
Love that. Amazing. Jerry, is there something that you wish you knew when you first became an entrepreneur that you know now that you just were like, oh God, I wish I knew that back then?
It's funny because I didn't know anything when I first
Oh
became an
man.
entrepreneur. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I found a voice note from several years back. I leave voice notes on my phone, and I was literally explaining to myself what an offer is. And I'm like, so an offer
Wow.
is like this thing that you sell. And now I talk about offers all the time. So, I would say that the biggest thing, and this is actually something that I just learned last year, is everything we do in our business is a decision or an action. So
Hmm.
everything you're doing, it's deciding what questions I'm going to ask on the podcast, deciding who the guest is going to be, right? And then the action is actually recording, editing, and uploading the podcast. And decisions and actions use different parts of our brain. So if you separate those, you will get way more done. Most of the time, we try and make decisions and take action at the same time. And that is when we are at our least productive. And so now I will literally day block or like block off 2 hours or whatever. And this is just decisions. I'm going to make all the decisions about this upcoming launch. Then the next day, I sit down and I'm just taking action. And the first time I did this, my wife was like, "How was your day?" And I'm like, "I think I had the most productive day I've ever had in my life." I edited and scheduled 3 YouTube videos. I came up with a new offer. I outlined it. Or sorry, I took an offer that I had an idea for and, made the outline and all these things. So when you separate decisions and actions, you will be more productive. It's like magic.
And that's great as well, because that also comes back to that kind of moment of, like you said earlier on, about going for that hike in the morning and then coming back. And it's almost like you're now going to action those previous decisions, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Although
like
although
those,
now with
those,
AI, I can take action on the hike as well, which is
yeah.
kind of cool. But
Yeah.
overall, yeah, that's a great time for decisions. And the other part I like is it's that usually that finite amount of time. Like when you go walk the dogs on the beach, you're not
Hmm.
going to go for 6 hours, and
No.
so you can you have that limit to make sure you get something done if you choose to.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. This is a very similar question, but is there something you wish you knew before you were a father that you know now? Or is there any kind of lessons that you think, God, I wish I knew that back then?
Again, I feel like I knew nothing.
Nothing.
I would say the biggest thing, and I think this becomes really important when your kids start to kind of, look for their own independence, which can be, 10, 11, 12, 13,
Hmm.
is, and this actually I got it from the show Ted Lasso, but there is this scene where he says, be curious, not judgmental. And he attributes it to somebody. And when I looked it up, I guess it wasn't actually that person's quote. So I don't know who originally said it. But now, whenever I'm having a conversation, and this works on adults too, but when there's any sort of tension or disagreement, I just kind of keep asking questions out of curiosity instead of saying, no, you're wrong. No, you can't do that,
Yeah.
because it helps them reason, it helps them come to their own conclusions as well. And it never escalates any tension because they have to justify everything that they've just said, even if it was out of emotion.
Yeah.
So that's been really powerful.
That is amazing. I'm a massive believer, and we do ask our kids some silly questions. And I always think that, did you have a good day is a very closed question. And I often ask my daughter all sorts of strange questions. But one thing I also do think, oh, what else? What else? What else? Just in the
Yeah.
excitement, because it brings that, like if there is any tension from the day or anything even exciting, I'm like, what did you have for lunch? And it's always like, oh, I don't know. Like, well, I had beans. Oh, what else? And like you build it. Sounds says she's
Yeah.
beans. It sounds like she just had beans, but yeah, it does really
So
kind of,
simple.
yeah, yeah,
Love
exactly.
it.
One last thing I want to ask you, Jerry, and it's a new thing I've been asking people on the episode because music has been such a huge part of my life. I am a massive believer that just by having these musical anchors that we've had in our past that can kind of spur on these emotions in positively, You'll Never Walk Alone will always spark my wife on offers a funeral song that she heard one of her grandparents. And I've got all sorts of various different songs. I can hear them, they can trigger that emotion. But I'd love to know for you, is there a song for you that maybe you're in a bit of a fuzz and you just think to yourself, "Oh, right, let's go. I need something to get me going." What's your kind of raise your vibration song?
I have a lot of them. I listen to music all the time when I'm
Hmm.
working, but there's a lot of them. The one though that I always go back to as my anthem is by Dirty Heads, and it's called Vacation. And it's not that well known, although the YouTube video is very popular because Christopher Walken, I think, is it Christopher? Oh no, it's not Christopher Walken. I was thinking a different song. It's if I don't know if you ever had the show Saved by the Bell in the UK, but
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
principal
yeah.
on that show, okay, is in that music video. But
Mr.
the
Belding, right?
chorus, yes, Mr. Belling,
Yeah.
yeah. But the chorus is basically a I'm on vacation every single day because now I can't remember it. I'll give you the basics is I love what I do, so every day is a vacation. And so
Beautiful.
when I speak at conferences, I if I get to choose music, that's what I have playing when I go out. I know the crowd doesn't necessarily all know it,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, it's I'm on vacation every single day because I love my occupation. That's what it is.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah. I know the song. I know the song.
do you know
Yeah,
that
yeah,
song?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
yeah.
sing it, but yeah, that's my anthem.
And do you know what I think's amazing, especially when you've just said that, if the audience don't know it, but at that moment, the most important thing of you walking out on that stage is actually that you're in the best frame of mind so you can show up as the best version for them, right?
Yes,
And if
exactly.
you bring that energy, you could walk out to anything and they would be like, right, let's go. So yeah, I love that. Jerry, thank you so much for chatting with me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I feel like I've got a million questions to ask you, but that's because there's probably lots of things I've done and haven't done on YouTube in the last 12 months, but maybe that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, I'm really, really grateful for your inspiration for me kind of getting off my backside and getting a podcast. But it's opened so many doorways for me. If nothing else, the people that I've collaborated with have I've had some incredible stories, I've had some incredible chats, and you know, you will be episode 53. So I can't wait to get the next sort of 12 months of episodes out. And yeah, it's really super exciting. So yeah, once again, thanks for joining me, and also thanks for the inspiration.
Yeah, honored to be here, and honored that that talk was inspiring enough to get you to move forward after a couple years. It's awesome. Congrats.